Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. In today's episode, if you couldn't tell, I am officially ready to trim the tree. So you can see that I have kind of gone all in on my holiday decor. My tree is up, I have lights up, I've got some decorations in here. It's basically a winter wonderland in my living room. And that is basically to celebrate the release of my Trim the Tree patterns. So my Trim the Tree socks and my Trim the Tree cowl are officially out today, and I am super excited about it. If you have been watching this for any period of time, then you will probably already be familiar with my Trim the Tree socks, which I started a while back. And then I just did the cowl recently, and now that we are officially in November, I wanted to go ahead and get the pattern out so people could start knitting it for the holidays. And okay, so I realize it's like the first week of November and my Christmas tree is up, and that might seem extreme. And to be completely honest, I have like a whole thing where I normally put the tree up on the evening of Thanksgiving. I'm in the US, I am in the Pacific Northwest, so that's kind of our tradition in this house, is that the evening of Thanksgiving, if we're home, then we will go ahead and if we have the energy, we'll put the tree up that night. If not, then we'll put the tree up that weekend and do all of the decorating. So I've actually only decorated in this room just because it is a little early for me, you know, putting the tree up on November 1st. It's definitely a bit early, but as you can see, let's see if I can, the cats are absolutely loving it. So this is their favorite time of year. As you can tell, Bagel is having a great time. Hey, buddy. And it's actually a shame you can't really see them. I wonder if I can, let's see if I can tilt. There we go. Maybe we'll give the people what they want, which is basically, is that gonna work? I don't know, that might be too much. Okay. All right, compromise. There we go. I don't know, this might be a weird angle. We're playing with it. We're playing with the angle right now. But anyway, so yeah, the cats are enjoying the tree. This is actually our first holiday season with Tuna. So I'm not sure if he experienced a tree before, but he's experiencing it now and he's loving it. I'm gonna go ahead and tilt this back up because that feels weird. Okay. Okay, so the camera is back and I'm sure we'll see some more kitty interruptions. But yeah, so I went ahead and decorated just because we needed to do a photo shoot for both of these patterns. And obviously, you know, if my pattern is Trim the Tree with a bunch of Christmas lights, it kind of felt like we needed the tree in the scene. So that is why you'll see all of this. So we are fully decked out and we are just in the holiday spirit of things. And honestly, like, I think it's great, you know, the holidays bring a little bit of joy in a time where it's otherwise just kind of cold and not as thrilling. So it's nice to have some positivity right now, and it's nice to kind of come in this room and feel like I'm in a little bit of a winter wonderland. So with that really long intro, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I will note, I do actually think today will be a shorter episode, just because I've been just getting ready with all of this, so I don't have a ton of updates, but I do have one update outside of these patterns. So why don't we go ahead and get started, and I will chat a little bit about both of these patterns. So like I said, the Trim the Tree socks and the Trim the Tree cowl are officially out today. And so for the socks, if you haven't watched before or you don't remember, these socks I used Hazel Knits Artisan sock. And Wendy from Hazel Knits has put kits together for both the socks and the cowl. So I'm gonna go over the yarn I used and what she is offering. But you do not have to get the kit for the pattern. You can also, these patterns are both really great for scraps. And so I'll talk a little bit about all of that. But for the socks, so you can get a kit, and the yarns that I used, like I said, it's Hazel Knits Artisan sock, and the colors are Naked, which is this color, this lighter green background color is Herb. The green stranding of the lights is Darby. And then for the light bulbs, we have, I just want to make sure I have the right name. So the pink is Rhodey, the orange is Sassy, the blue is Meltwater, the gold yellow is Safety First, and then the red is Scarlet. And so the kits will include plenty of yarn for even the largest sizes. So you don't have to worry about running out, but you also won't have so much yarn that you're gonna have a ton left over. I'm gonna try, I'll probably be able to pop up photos of the kits because Wendy showed me the kits ahead of time. So it's a really great kit that will give you exactly what you need and nothing more. And this pattern flies, like it really flies. I couldn't believe it. If you are afraid of knitting all over colorwork socks, I think this is a good one to try. I will also mention that I had testers who just did the colorwork on the cuff and opted to just keep the foot blank. So you don't even have to do color work all the way through. You can just do it on the cuff and then leave it. You could do it on the cuff, leave it blank for the foot, and then do one round right before the toe. There are a lot of things that you could do to achieve this look without necessarily having to do all of the color work if you're a little intimidated by that. But the repeats are, it's only an 8-stitch repeat. So it really moves quickly. It's very easy to memorize, and I found that I knit these up incredibly fast for colorwork socks. Like in comparison, if you watched my video a few weeks ago where I was talking about the Viking socks that I've now knit 3 times, basically I knit a pair for Thomas, I knit a pair for myself that was supposed to be Thomas's, and then I knit a pair for my dad recently when he came to town. And those really took just like a long time. I mean, I was able to get that last pair done pretty quickly, but the motif itself is not one that's easy to memorize. It's kind of scattered. You have to carry your floats a lot. And I just felt like for colorwork socks, those moved pretty slow. These completely fly off the needles. And I know that's a saying that you hear a lot, but really with these, and my testers said the same thing, that they couldn't believe how quickly this moved. And it's a very simple repeat to do, and it's just quite easy to kind of get in the swing of things. And as you watch the colors shift, it's just kind of exciting to be like, okay, just a few more rounds, and then I'm on to a new background, a few more rounds, and I'm on a new light bulb color. And they're just really fun. They make me really happy. And now that we're just kind of starting to get into the holiday season, I feel like this is such a fun knit. I do plan on knitting some more of these in some different color combinations, just because I think it'd be fun to see them in all the different types. I even think, I've been thinking a lot about this since finishing, that, let's see if I can, yeah. I actually have been thinking a lot about doing one where it's literally just these colors. You like your very traditional, that really stark scarlet red, and then the 2 different greens and the white for your kind of like very traditional Christmas theme. So I think I might have to do another version like that. And so that's the info for these socks. So a few videos back, I shared how much yarn I used for my size, because the kits obviously include enough for all sizes, and a little bit extra, of course, because you want a margin for error. But if you're looking at your scraps right now because you really just want to use what you have, these light bulbs use like next to nothing, just a few grams. So you can get a lot of stash yarn out of your stash and into these and have a lot of different options. So that is probably all the info for the socks. I think that kind of concludes everything for that. I've talked about these a bunch, so I know you're probably already familiar with these if you've watched me for any length of time. What you might be a little less familiar with is the cowl, which I was working on this in the last video, but it is now complete. and I love it. It is exactly how I was hoping it would come out. So this cowl is also with Hazelnut's yarn, but this is a DK cowl because, you know, you don't want to knit a fingering weight color work cowl if you don't have to, especially for something like this where there is, you know, a decent amount of stranding that you're doing. So this uses Hazelnut's Lively DK, and it uses all of the same colors except the scarlet. I ended up not doing the scarlet, which it ended up being interesting because I didn't quite realize it until I was working. I started working through the cowl and I was writing up my chart before I got to that point. And I realized that the uneven number here, it works great for a sock, you know, because it fits all the way to the foot and then you get to the toe and you're done. But with a cowl, you're repeating that over and over again, and then it's connecting, so it's sort of an infinity seamless look. And when I put the pink and the red together, I mean, you can see they are different, but I didn't feel like they were different enough side by side. And then on top of that, you'll see that the sock starts and ends with a green background, which obviously that wasn't going to work for a cowl. So I just basically removed that 5th color. And so you've got a 4-color repeat. And so it just has these 4 colors. It ends on the yellow, and then you go back to the pink again, which you can see there. So the pink is the start and the finish. And so like I said, this is a seamless infinity cowl, and I have done it Mobius style, which means that there is a twist in it. And I do that so that you get a little bit more fullness in the cowl. If I didn't do that, then it would just be, this is also something you can do, and I like to show it this way. The nice thing about a Mobius cowl is that you can kind of do both. But if you weren't going to twist it, it would just kind of look like this. So depending on your preference, you can choose which way you want to go. I like the twist. I like the twist because it makes it look full. And then also when you've got a pattern that's going horizontally, the twist really helps to kind of shake it up, and it changes it to more of a diagonal view up and down. And so you get, I actually really enjoy the way this looks stranded because I feel like it actually looks like a proper set of lights that you would strand. So if you see behind me, I was feeling very on theme with my light bulbs. And, you know, as I was twisting them, it reminded me of the cowl as I was twisting them around the bookshelf. And I think that you really get that same effect on here. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. This took no time because it's DK weight. It moves really fast. You're using much larger needles, and it really flies. And so this also has a kit available through Hazel Knits, and this one is actually a really fun kit. So Wendy decided to add a few extra little goodies into the cowl kit just because you're doing a little bit more. So this cowl, because it's a Mobius cowl that you seam together, it has a provisional cast on. And what a provisional cast on is, if you don't know, is you basically cast on the first row in waste yarn. You can also do a cast on with barber cords, like the, I don't know what the non-branded name of that is, Stitch Savers or something like that. I don't know, but I call them barber cords because I know that's like the first brand that I knew that carried them, but just the silicone tubing, basically. And there's a way that you can cast on with the silicone tubing as well. And if you don't want to use a crochet hook and cast on to waste yarn. So Wendy, she actually provided a few things. So she provided I think she said it was like a 24-inch silicone cord for the provisional cast on in that kit. And she also has these really cute needle stoppers. Oh my goodness. She showed them to me. I didn't even know she was adding them. And then she sent me pictures of the kits and I was like, oh my God. She has the cutest needle stoppers, and they have, it's like little polymer clay, I think, or actually no, I think they might be silicone also. But they have these little Christmas lights in them. So they're so perfect, they're so on theme. And then I think she also is including a stitch marker as well. So you're gonna get all of that plus the yarn. So, and I will note, you're gonna get all of the same colors in the Lively DK except the scarlet color, because the scarlet is not used in this one. So in the Cowl, you will get Naked, Herb, Darby, and then you'll get Rhodey, Sassy, Meltwater, and Safety First. Those will be all the colors you'll get. And there will be plenty of yarn for you to use for the Cowl. So I'm very excited. It was so fun to work with Wendy again on a kit. And I think she had a lot of fun with it too. It's just really cool to see the extra goodies that she gave. So if you are a big fan of getting into the holidays like me, I think you will really enjoy this kit. So I'll have links below for both of those kits. Definitely take a look. I also will have a discount code for my viewers, so I will write it down here and it'll be in the show notes, and that will be for Ravelry only. So definitely get your discount if you're interested in these patterns. They will both, the discount code will apply to both patterns. You don't have to buy both patterns to get the discount. If you buy one pattern, that discount will apply just for that one as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to have my Trim the Tree patterns out into the world. Like I said, I'm probably going to knit a little bit more with them. I think I'm gonna knit myself at least another pair of socks in maybe my my very traditional Christmas theme. Although I might also do one just completely wild. Who knows? I mean, I'm sure that you totally can relate to this, that I have so much sock yarn, like just so much stash sock yarn, that I could make a million of these. Hi, Tuna. We have a visitor. Tuna's saying hi. Hi. So yeah, I think I'll probably make a few more pairs of these during the holidays, just as I'm really getting into the season. It's been fun to kind of like get into the season a little early. Like I normally wait a few more weeks, but I don't know, I've been playing some Christmas music and just really getting into it, and it's a nice way to bring a little bit of joy into my day. Oh, and then one more thing. If you watched last week, I talked about how I ordered these light bulb, ironically, these Christmas light stitch markers, not light bulb stitch markers. I ordered these Christmas light stitch markers on Etsy. I was hoping they were gonna get here in time for to still use them while I was working on my cowl. They came the day after I finished, which is fine because, like I said, I'll be knitting more of these, of this pattern. But let's see if I can show it without the glare. Here they are. Oh my God, Tuna almost fell off the table. Anyway, okay. So here are my Christmas light stitch markers. Are they not absolutely adorable? So these are from Kitty Craft Studio. These are not sponsored. I just really wanted on theme stitch markers, and I looked them up on Etsy and ordered them immediately. And it was actually really cute. It came with an extra one. I'm guessing that maybe she's giving these out as gifts for all of her orders right now, this little purple one over here. And it just happened that what I was ordering was the set of lights. So now I have one extra purple one. But definitely check out her Etsy shop. I hadn't heard of her before, but she has a ton of stitch markers, like a ton, so many options. And if you are planning to work on either of these patterns, it might be fun to get a set of these too. So like I said, these were $8 on Etsy. These shipped from the US, so keep that in mind. And it took me, so these came from Pennsylvania. I'm in Washington. I think it only took like a week between ordering and receiving them in my mailbox, which is pretty great. Especially because I custom ordered She has different clasp types and you can choose them in silver or gold. So considering all of that, I actually was really surprised at how quickly I got them. So these will definitely be on my needles for the next couple of months. I am just really here for it. I'm here for all of the Christmas spirit. So yeah, and thank you for all of your kind words about the patterns. I feel like everybody's as excited as I am about these, and I think it's just once you start to get that colder weather and you get into these months where you're maybe not looking forward to it as much, it's nice to have this little bit of joy that you can kind of cling on to and focus on the positive aspects of these colder months and, you know, the shift in the seasons. So yeah, Trim the Tree patterns are here and they are they're ready to be knit for everyone. Definitely take a look at my testers pages on Ravelry. You'll be able to see those now. There are so many fun options that they made. Like, I cannot get over all of the different versions, and it's definitely inspired me, some of the different color options. I know I talked about it before, but there's one that did like a very pale pink background instead of green. I just love those. I don't know, I love the really bright, sort of traditional but non-traditional colors for Christmas, like the pink and pale green instead of the red and dark green sometimes, like shifting to more of the like bright colors but still within the Christmas palette. So just really fun, really cute, and yeah, my testers were so great and such a joy to work with. So definitely look at their options for the socks. And so that concludes all the Trim the Tree stuff. Okay, we are back. Apologies if the angle looks a little bit different than it did before. I actually had to shift my side table over here when I rearranged everything for the tree, and Tuna tried to jump on the side table, and he still thinks he's bagel size, even though he's like 3 times the size of Bagel, and he knocked the table over and it was a whole thing. So I had to stop the video. We had to take a bit of an intermission and then just had to like fix things, and now we're back on track. So yeah, that might explain why things look a little bit different, but nothing crazy. So we're back on track, and yeah, so that leads me to talking about my only update for today on any works in progress, which is my Robinia sweater, which if you watched last week, then you'll already be familiar with my Robinia sweater, but it has some interesting updates to talk about. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my needle stoppers off so it doesn't untwist my needles like it did that one time. All right, so Robinia sweater progress. This is a sweater pattern by Ventzel, and I didn't quite get gauge because I am using thinner yarn. So I am using Illimani Amelie in the colors Hunter Green and Bone. And so this is a bulky weight yarn, but my gauge is a little bit smaller than her gauge because she uses a ton of yarns held together to achieve gauge. I knew that, so I'm knitting the size 3 to achieve about a 42-inch bust. So, let's see, last time when I talked about this, I was saying that I thought I was around the point where I was ready to bind off. I just needed to try it on with some jeans, which I did. I tried it on with the jeans that I will typically wear with this, and it was at the length I wanted. So I did the ribbing, which it calls for twisted ribbing, twisted rib, which, yeah, on smaller needles with a bulky weight, super fluffy yarn is just not the most fun. If you've knit twisted rib before, then you will know what I'm talking about. It's just, you know, you are knitting through the back loop on tiny needles with a very fuzzy yarn that already gets tangled a lot. So that moved pretty slowly. And this pattern, like most sweater patterns, the bind off it calls for is, so it's an Italian sewn bind off, but she has the 2 setup rows beforehand. So I actually think when you do the setup rows with the Italian, like the sewn bind off, I think that's a tubular bind off. Like I think, my understanding is that you can do a sewn bind off where you just do ribbing until the point you want to stop, and then you do your sewn bind off. And the only difference with a tubular bind off is that you do the 2 setup rows where, you know, you do the one where you are knitting the knits and slipping the purls, and then you do the next one where you're purling the purls and slipping the knits. And then you do the same sewn bind off. So yeah, this basically calls for a tubular bind off. And so I should mention, because this is actually pretty funny, and maybe a warning on thinking about what content you might be watching while you work on certain projects. So I decided that I was ready to bind this guy off on Halloween, and Thomas and I wanted to watch something super spooky on Halloween. So we decided to check out The Haunting of Hill House, something like that. I think it's The Haunting of Hill House. I think that's the name of it. And so we, just to kind of like give some backstory, last year on Halloween, well, like Halloween week, we watched the show The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix, which, if you're familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, then you'll know the story. But it was made into a mini series, and we absolutely loved it. Like, we watched that kind of the week leading up to Halloween, and it was so good, so excellent. Like, the perfect amount of creepy without being super scary. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be like super scared. I don't want to see gore. I don't want a bunch of like, you know, needless murder or creepy, like, I don't want like gory horror. I kind of want just like creepy supernatural. And that really delivered really well, while also, you know, allowing the Poe original story to shine, which is great. And I believe the showrunner is, I think his name is Mike Flanagan. It's either Mike Flanagan or Mike Flanagan. Hi, Bagel. Bagel is saying hi. Hopefully he's not going to cause another disaster. So basically, we really enjoyed the show, and we found out that that showrunner has a few other shows on Netflix. And so this year we decided that we would give another one of those a shot, and that's why we decided to do The Haunting of Hill House. I think that's the name. Anyway, so we decided to start watching that on Halloween night, and I was just doing the bind off while we were watching, and I'm like, I've done this bind off a million times. This is perfect content for that. Sorry, I've got fuzzies all over my lips. So I guess maybe it was drawing my attention a little more than I realized, and so I got like, I don't know, 12 to 15 stitches into my bind off. Like, I wasn't even far. It was like a section that big. It was nothing. So yeah, I got like 12 to 15 stitches in, and I looked down and I'm like, this doesn't look right. Like, something is off here. Like, you had your rib columns, and then the stitches that are supposed to like carry the ribbing over, they were like a little off. So you had like your column here, and then the stitches were here. Something was weird. Even weirder was when I flipped it upside down, like the back side was immaculate. It was perfect. It was stunning. It was like everything you'd wish for. But the front of my tubular bind off looked a mess. Like, it was a disaster. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to rip it back. It's fine, whatever. Well, if you have ever done any sort of a sewn bind off with a yarn like this, where it's super fuzzy, this really has the same properties as like a mohair, if I'm being honest, or like a suri, because it does have suri in it, to where it's just so sticky. So trying to undo a stitch, or like rip back or undo that sewing, oh my goodness, it was not happening. And on top of that, when I do a sewn bind off, I like to give myself typically about 5 times the circumference in the tail. And that is just so I have enough yarn to ensure I can do the bind off all the way around. Only because I used to do like 3 to 4 times the circumference, and there's been a couple of times where it ended up being just short. And so I'd rather have too much than not enough. But what that means is when you are doing the bind off and you're pulling the yarn through, you're just like pulling yarn for days, just days and days of pulling the yarn before you get it all the way through. And it's tangling on things and it's knotting in it itself. And then like, if you double up the tail, that is knotting too. And so it's just a nightmare, like just really not fun. So I tried to like undo the stitches and it just wasn't really happening. And I was getting kind of frustrated. So I was like, all right, why don't I, at this point, I think it would just be easier for me to just rip back one whole row, come back and then knit underneath those, like rip back underneath those stitches and just, I'll cut the yarn, call it a loss, reattach a new yarn and start from there. So I ripped all the way back. I got to that point on the bind off again and I still, like that yarn was just not moving. So I think it's so sad because I started the bind off at like, I don't know, 8. And I think I finally ripped out the bind off and that entire row by like 12:30 at night. It was just like, it was crazy. It took me so long to get back to where I had started because it was just so tangled and so knotted and so sticky. And it was dark, we had the lighting low, and so it was like, you know, this dark green yarn is a little bit hard to read. I was just making it way more difficult for myself, but, you know, I got it done, I got it back to where it was, and then I was super annoyed about it. So we went to bed, and next night, was ready to tackle it again. Fortunately, the second night, we were still watching the show. It's a mini series, so like we couldn't have finished it all on Halloween, so we decided to continue watching it for the next few days. And so we continued watching, and I attempted the bind off again the second night, and it finally worked out. So yeah, I guess I must have just been off a stitch, or like maybe I forgot to carry the yarn behind and then back through. One of those weird things to where it just offset the entire thing and I didn't notice until it became a whole fiasco. So this time I paid closer attention while I did my bind off, and that also meant that because, like I said, this yarn is very sticky and I like to have 5 times the length, this bind off took forever. Like just, I feel like most of what I was doing is just like pulling the yarn, just pulling. I was like flinging it over my shoulder. I'm just like, you know, Thomas is looking at me like, what is happening over there? And I'm just like flinging it this way, flinging it that way to like keep it from getting tangled and knotted, and it's still getting knotted. And then of course, by the end, I had plenty of yarn left over, so I probably could have done 4 times the circumference and been fine. But moral of the story, I successfully bound this guy off, and it looks pretty good. It's not blocked, so, you know, it still looks a little messy right now, but I'm pretty happy with it. I will say, just in general, doing a sewn bind off with a fuzzy yarn like a Surrey or a mohair, I feel like it always looks a little messier than I'd like, just because it's just so sticky. The stitches just kind of, they don't bind off as cleanly as it would with just like a merino, you know, or a nice plump yarn, which is to be expected. It's fine. The nice thing about it being a fuzzy yarn is when you're not like this on it, when you're actually at a normal viewing distance, it just looks fine. You don't see the stitches, you don't see the definition. So I'm happy with it. It looks good. It's got a good amount of stretch. And so that's done. I will admit I'm not looking forward to having to do the tubular bind off on the sleeves, but it'll be a smaller circumference, and I think there's also like a rapid decrease at the cuff, so I think it won't be too many stitches. And plus it's a bulky yarn, so that's even less stitches. So body is done. And then after Biggle is stealing my yarn, you can see the tension on it. No, don't steal my yarn, Biggle. This episode brought to you by Insane Cats. Okay. All right, we're back on track. I got my my yarn back from Bagel. So after I did the bind off, I was feeling super great and decided to get started on the sleeves. So the sleeves were another adventure that I kind of knew was coming. So when I was looking at this pattern on Ravelry, interestingly, there were a lot of complaints and like concerns about the sleeves. So there are some unusual sizing things about this pattern. The armhole depth is the same for, I think, the first 3, if not the first 4 sizes. So it's the same amount of sleeve stitches that you're picking up for all of those sizes. And so a lot of people were complaining that like for the smaller sizes, it's just way too many stitches for a sleeve, and the sleeve is massive. So I was a little concerned about that. But then also, you know, with my gauge issues and everything, I knew it would be a little bit different for me because I'm knitting a larger size to achieve a smaller size. So while looking that up, the other complaint people were having was they couldn't find any sort of like sleeve pickup rate. And what I mean by that is when you are, all right, so the sleeve stitches are live. Well, they're not live, but the sleeve stitches are open here. And basically you have to pick up the stitches to start your sleeve. And typically designers will give you a pickup rate, and that is something like pick up every stitch or pick up every 2 out of 3 stitches or something like that. And this didn't have any notation about that, and people were not thrilled about that. And the rates were kind of all over the place for what people were recommending, just dependent on size. So I decided to go with my kind of tried and true method with most things, which is picking up 2 out of every 3 stitches. I decided I did some like internal math, and based on how it was looking, I was like, let me start here and see what I come up with, and then we can go from there. It's just picking up stitches, so if I don't like it, I'll start with a different rate next time. The 2 out of every 3 stitches actually worked really well for me. And it ended up giving me the exact amount of stitches that she called for you to have on your sleeve. So we'll see if I can achieve the same magic on the second sleeve. But that worked out perfectly. So I was really happy with that method for this. And so I picked up and I just started going as is. I decided that I'm just gonna leave the sleeves as is. Some people recommended doing a decrease right after. Some people, there were lots of different methods. I figured I'm gonna go with this sleeve as is, have a nice balloon sleeve, and then have the rapid decrease, and I'm gonna see how that works. In my mind, I feel like that's going to look really nice. But it's just one of those things that I think I just need to knit it up and see. If I like it, I'll do the same for the second sleeve. If not, then I'll start the sleeve over again, and it's fine. So we are still watching The Haunting on Hill. I don't even remember what is the name of the show? The Haunting of Hill House? I think that's the name. Anyway, so we're still watching the show. It's still super creepy, super interesting. I'm super into it. And so I see the chart, and I've been doing the chart for the whole body, so I already know what I'm doing, and I'm like, okay, let's just go. It's sleeve time. There are no decreases, so let's just go. And so, I mean, it's not like I knit a ton. I knit like basically a full chart repeat, and I went to start the chart again, and I'm looking at the chart. And well, first off, I'm noticing that there are 2 whole pages dedicated to the sleeves. And I'm looking, and the chart on the first sleeve is actually much shorter, and then the chart on the second page, the chart on the first page is much shorter, and the chart on the second page is like your full-size chart for like that you see on the body. And so then I'm like, wait a second, I missed something. And that's when I realized that apparently you are supposed to be doing a series of short rows throughout the sleeve. I totally missed that. Didn't see it, didn't even know it was there. And I had one of those moments where you just kind of sit there for a bit and you're like, well, what are we gonna do here? Are we gonna start over? Do we need to start over? Do I want short rows on my sleeves? Do I feel like doing short rows on my sleeves? And basically I decided no, I don't want to do that. Mostly maybe because I'm being lazy, but also just because I don't think that's going to achieve anything for me that I necessarily want. I think having a straight sleeve with a rapid decrease to give me a balloon sleeve is actually the look I want. So I'm just going to avoid that. So just keep that in mind if this is something you're planning to knit and you are looking at mine, know that that is a modification that I am making. Looking through, it does seem like several people didn't do the short rows, and I saw a couple of notes where people said that they wouldn't do it again. So I just figured I would omit that, and we're gonna see how this goes. So this is a very experimental sleeve on this guy, but I think it's gonna be fine. And it's just a sleeve. If it doesn't work out, I'll knit it again. It's not a big deal. Strangely, like, I've never had a huge issue with the whole like sleeve island thing. I don't know why, but I think by the time I finish one sleeve, in my mind, I'm like, all I have left is one sleeve, and it's a small circumference, and it's gonna go fast. So that doesn't bother me too much, and so hopefully maybe next time I will actually have a decent amount to show on the sleeve, and then I can try it on and see how it's going to fit and how it looks. So yeah, we're gonna see how that all goes. So wish me luck. I'm feeling good though. Like, I know that there's been a series of modifications I've had to make on this pattern, but I do feel like when this is done, I am gonna be really happy with it, and I do suspect I'm gonna wear it a lot. And also, now that I'm in my whole like holiday vibe, come on, doesn't this feel so on theme? I know, it feels so good. Next up will be a red sweater. Okay, but yeah, so that is all of my updates on my Robinia sweater. So more on that next time. But that basically concludes all of my knitting chat for today. So I do have some book chat, some book updates. So if you watched last week, then you will know that I had just finished the ACOTAR series, or what is out so far from the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. And I was kind of in the whole, like, what am I gonna read now? I don't know. After I finish a series, I'm always in a bit of a book reading slump where I just, like, I don't know how to break out of feeling like I'm in that universe and starting something new. And I did get a lot of recommendations from people to start Throne of Glass and to not worry about Assassin's Blade, just start Throne of Glass. And I guess Assassin's Blade is like somewhere in the middle. But I decided that I'm gonna take a little break. I do plan on reading that series later, probably later this year. But I just wanna take a little breather in between. So I just like a few nights ago, I was in my Libby app, the library app, and I was just looking for like what's available now, and The Bee Sting by Paul Murray came up. So I was just like, sure, let's download it. That is not for me. That book, I got about 80 pages into it, so I feel like I gave it a fair shot. Just really not my jam. It's a very bleak story, and I believe that it's going to follow like all the characters in this kind of rundown town. I don't know if it's really a rundown town, but it's just like people that are struggling and like all generally unhappy with themselves and each other, and it wasn't really fun to read. I look at books as kind of an escape, and I'm okay with heavy content, but this just wasn't really it for me. And then also, I just don't think I'm a big fan of the author's writing style. He's one of those authors where he doesn't use quotation marks in dialogue, and that I find kind of irritating. Like, I don't really understand the point of it. I don't know if it's like an artistic choice, but to me, I just find it makes it harder to read, and I'm spending more time rereading sections to try and figure out, is somebody talking or was somebody thinking that? Who is talking? Who is saying what to who? And I don't know, it just took me out of the book. So I you know, maybe it's a great book. It was on the New York Times bestseller list, and maybe it's just not for me, but personally, it's just not a book I can recommend. So I returned that one early, and I decided to give The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo a shot. That is by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I think a couple of my friends have mentioned this book, so it had been kind of on my radar. And this just happened to also be in the list of like available now. And so I just started it a couple nights ago, and I'm enjoying it. So it's interesting. I'm not very far into it yet, but I'm hopeful for kind of where I think this story is going to go. Without giving too much away, it's basically this Evelyn Hugo character. She's kind of like a bombshell from the 60s in Hollywood who has kind of continued to be a bombshell and a big presence in Hollywood over the years. And now she's much older, and basically a journalist is looking into her to try and tell her story. And this woman has been married 7 times, I suppose. And so the journalist, her angle is to focus on her marriages. And my hope is that's kind of like where it starts, and she's going to realize that there's more to her than just the marriages she was in. That's my hope anyway. But it seems to be the case as she's starting to unfold the layers of her life and her experiences. You're learning more about what she had to do, why she chose some of those relationships, and kind of that, what I find interesting is it seems to be kind of showing that power dynamic and that struggle for women who are in sort of a powerful role, but in a still very largely male-dominated industry, especially like Hollywood in the 50s. I mean, it's not largely male-dominated, it is male-dominated. So you do what they tell you, otherwise you're blacklisted. So it's really interesting to kind of see this very powerful woman and how she is navigating through that in order to stay relevant and stay powerful, and the things she has to do, for better or worse, to maintain that level of power and notoriety. So I'm really enjoying that. It just seems like a really interesting commentary for that sort of topic. But it also, it isn't too heavy. I mean, I will say, you know, keep in mind, this is based on relationships in the 50s and 60s and what was okay for men to do. And so keep in mind, there might be some minor trigger warnings in there. It's nothing that is very graphic, but there are some like domestic abuse issues. So just keep that in mind if that's a trigger for you. But I'm really enjoying the story so far. So I'm glad I picked that one up. We'll see. You know, we'll see as it unfolds if I still enjoy it by the end, but right now I'm enjoying that, and it seems to be a pretty quick, pretty easy read. So that is what I'm reading now, and that concludes my book chat. So if you stuck around until now, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in any of the Trim the Tree patterns, definitely get that discount code. You do not want to miss out on that. And thank you for all your nice comments. I feel like people have largely been as excited for this pattern as I am, and that's always really fun just because, you know, I'm super into it, but you never really know if it's just one of those things where like I'm into it and everybody is like, okay, big deal. So when people are also excited too, it's like, oh, yay. So that's been really fun to see. Definitely check out all of the testers project pages for the socks. Like I said, there are just, I mean, there are some really, really amazing versions of this, and there's so much you can do with it. And also, if you would like a kit from Hazel Knits, if there is any interest at all in that, I would recommend buying that sooner than later, just because I know with the kits that we did for the Flocking Good Time socks, those went so fast. And I'm kind of just based on the level of interest that I've seen, I'm kind of expecting that to be the same for these. So if you have any interest in all, definitely check that out sooner than later. the kits are really great, and I think they're really worth it. So yeah, thanks again for everything, for your kind comments, for watching, for all of that. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. If you would like to get in touch with me, I am meeshyfrazz on Instagram and Ravelry. You can email me at meeshyfrazz@gmail.com. You can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. And and that's it. Yeah, if you would like to subscribe to my newsletter, definitely do that so you can stay on top of new releases and discount codes and things like that. I'm also thinking about maybe adding a little bit to my newsletter where it's a little bit more about what's going on with me, what I'm reading, things like that. It won't be like super wordy or anything, but I might just add a little bit more content to it when I've got other things going on. But that's it for the contact info. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will chat with you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.